Revolution came with a promise of waking the sleeping giant. 10 years down the line, what has changed and what has remained the same? That is the conversation we are having tonight. And of course, my guest will be Kevin Osido, that is the Executive Director, County Governance Watch. And that is the discussion that you are planning to have it in just a matter of time. But our reporters have been working round the clock to bring you up to speed with the latest. But here is what is coming up in the next 1 hour. Odinga comes out gun blazing, tells US Ambassador Meg Whitman to keep off Kenyan affairs as he delivers a keynote speech at the Devolution Conference in Eldoret. Nowhere to hide. President William Ruto tells Kenyans to pay their taxes, warn all tax offenders that no one will be spared. Also tonight, not guilty. Mandago Entco accused plead not guilty in a conspiracy to steal money meant for Butch Finland scholarship saga. Plus, from Kenya to the world, Athletic Kenya boss Jackson Tuwe elected World Athletics Vice President. Alright, good evening and many thanks for joining us this 17th of August, the year 2023. Indeed, we have much lined up for you. And of course, Sammy Okello will be assisting us on our sign language interpretation department tonight. My name is Auma Evans. Remember, you can follow this broadcast on all of our social media platforms. We are live on YouTube at Kutv Kenya. You can tweet us at KUTV_Kenya at Auma Evans. Remember to use the hashtag Primetime News. Now we begin our story here, and actually we'll take you to Eldoret, where the former Prime Minister and Azimio leader Raila Odinga has threatened to push for the recall of American Ambassador to Kenya Meg Whitman over her remarks that last year's general election were free, fair and credible. Odinga in the meantime heaped praise on his anti-government protest, attributing them to the success of devolution, and celebrated the Constitution of Kenya 2010. Our very own Munene Weru is on that beat tonight. The American ambassador to Kenya, Meg Whitman, has been entangled in a heightened public criticism following her remarks that last year's general elections were fair and devoid of any irregularities.
Kenya held what many analysts and commentators say was the freest, fairest, and most credible election in Kenyan history.
Raila Odinga led the onslaught against Whitman, terming her a rogue ambassador, lest she will be recalled back to the US.
If Maandamano can lead to a dialogue between Ichung'wah and Kalonzo, everything is good with Maandamano. Tell the rogue ambassador, Kenya is not United States. Kenya is not a colony of United States. Keep your mouth shut when you're here. Otherwise, we will call for your recall back to your country. I thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Odinga met a warm reception in Eldoret as he graced the second day of this year's Devolution Conference, and upon assuming the dais, he hailed the reasons part of protests that he commanded, terming devolution as a child of his revolutionary efforts.
I want to tell him that this katiba that we have is a product of Maandamano. And I also want to remind that if Maandamano can help families whose children were cheated or money being taken to Finland, there's nothing wrong with Maandamano.
Raila called on the governors not to emulate the national government in imposing exorbitant taxes, but rather to cut their coats according to their sizes.
In times like these, county government may be tempted to do what the national government is doing, which is to increase charges for services they provide to generate more revenue.
Even as talks and occasional embrace ensue between Azimio and Kenya Kwanza, the opposition is yet to wipe their tears and move on from last year's general election, a notion that became conspicuous during Raila's address today. Munene Weru, Kutv.
Let's stay in Eldoret for a bit. Azimio la Umoja One Kenya leader Raila Odinga has hailed devolution for enhancing service delivery in the country since its inception in 2010, or rather 10 years ago. Raila was the chief guest in the devolution conference being held in Eldoret, Uasin Gishu County today. And as our very own Joseph Kess reports, Odinga blamed the national government for interfering with the functions that have been devolved to county governments.
While addressing the delegates attending the 8th Devolution Conference in Eldoret, Uasin Gishu County today, Azimio la Umoja One Kenya leader Raila Odinga has hailed devolution for reducing the time frame in the realization of government development goals, which would have taken the national government decades to achieve.
The prospect of Kenyans taking charge of their destiny and driving their own development is alive today because of devolution. A new middle class, whose members have not stepped into any major city in Kenya, is rising in the villages across Kenya, thanks to devolution. Devolution's success is a success story. It's a testimony to what we can achieve as a nation when we decide to pursue big dreams, no matter how daunting the obstacles may seem.
Raila has blamed the national government for tampering with functions that have been devolved to counties, including those in the health and agricultural sector.
Today, fertilizers are procured and distributed by the national government. Affordable housing is being conceptualized and implemented by the national government. The government wants to build markets and employ community health workers. All these are devolved functions whose money should be released to the counties.
Raila has also claimed that the national government should first sort out corruption in the national level before blaming county governments for graft. He has also said that a lot of funds are being spent in the national government for functions that have been devolved to counties.
More money continues to be spent at Afya House, Kilim House, and Maji House in Nairobi for the roles that are devolved. Yani aone kunduli. In the Finance Act 2023, the budget for health has grown by 32 billion shillings at the national level. The current expenditure alone has increased by 17%, yet most of the health functions are devolved.
The former Prime Minister has also called for the government to address the remuneration of members of county assembly to avoid the tug of war between the county assemblies and the county governments.
Across the villages, MCAs have real concerns like remuneration and facilitation that ought to be addressed. That ought to be addressed in the interest of harmonious working relationship with the county dream bearers who are the governors. And you see the Nyani Aoni Kunduli.
On this third day of the devolution conference, Azimio leader Raila Odinga has called upon county bosses to continue discharging their services for the welfare of the society to make it easy for taxpayers to pay revenue without much pain. Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua is expected to address the conference tomorrow. Joseph Kess, Kutv.
Alright, that story by Joseph Case will be forming the basis of our discussion tonight. Of course, but we take a short break. When we come back, already my guest Kevin Osindo, that is the Executive Director, County Governance Watch, is already on standby. And as soon as we get out of this break, we will be robbing you into this particular discussion. See you in just a bit.
Straight away pour the drink. Karibu katika awamu yetu ya Funza Nikufunze, na leo nitakuwa na mtaalamu wangu ambaye anaandaa vinywaji. Liquor. Mambo matamu kweli kweli, kijana amewajibika kweli kweli hapa kwenye mitindo ya kipwani.
You need to look for high quality friends.
I'm from Kingston, Jamaica, Portmore. That's my village.
Kanga kitini hapo ukinyethia ukikatia mademo akipita.
Sinaweza saa hii nimekuja kukopesa choo.
Right, welcome back and let's move on. President William Ruto has issued a stern warning to those who will be, of course, stern action will be taken against government officials involved in corruption. The president has promised to safeguard public resources and ensure appropriate usage of taxes collected from Kenyans. President Ruto spoke today at the Anglican Church of Kenya, St. James Cathedral in Kiambu County at a fundraiser towards church construction and later at rally in Kiambu. Let's get more from our very own Dorothy Musyoka.
Corruption cases have become hard to eliminate, with the most recent one being reported in Uasin Gishu County concerning Finland scholarship scandal that has landed Uasin Gishu Senator Jackson Mandago in court. President William Ruto, who joined faithfuls at the Anglican Church of Kenya, St. James Cathedral, Kiambu County, cautioned government officials involved in corruption and embezzlement of public resources.
Nilipatiwa Biblia, nikapatiwa katiba, na pia nilipatiwa upanga. Hii upanga hii ni ya kufyeka hawa wafisadi wote na wakora wote. Hiyo I will not spare them.
At the same time, the head of state marketed the affordable housing plan as one of the ways to create employment opportunities for youth, which will help them curb drug abuse.
Hapa Kiambu mpango yetu ni manyumba 50,000 in our first phase. Na ni kwa sababu tunataka vijana wetu badala ya kuingia kwa madawa na ulevi wapate ajira, wajishughulishe na kujenga Kiambu na kujenga taifa letu la Kenya.
President Ruto also assured that the government will continue to support the vulnerable through the cash transfer program, urging for more registrations of the less fortunate in our society.
Tumefungua registration mpya. Tunajua kuna wazee wengi wametimiza miaka 70, lakini for the last 4 years hawajasajiliwa. Tunaanza kuanzia tarehe 1 ili kuanzia January next year tutakuwa tumesajili watu wengine karibu 1500 ambao tutawaweka katika cash transfer, tuweze kuwashughulikia watu wanyonge walioko katika miongoni mwetu.
The president also accused the opposition for the protest held in the past few months, saying demonstrations will not lower the cost of living. National Assembly Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah insisted that there will be no handshake despite the ongoing talks.
Nataka niwaambie hivi, maneno ya viongozi tulimaliza tarehe 9 mwezi wa 8. Nyinyi kama wananchi muligawa kazi na mkagawa ikaisha. Mulipatiana ya rais, mkapatiana ya governor, mkapatiana ya mjumbe, mkapatiana ya MCA. Kuna yenye mulibakisha? Si mulibakitiana yote? Si uchaguzi iliisha? Ama namna gani?
Pia tutazungumza jinsi watakoma kabisa kuleta fujo na vurugu kila baada ya uchaguzi. Na tukawaambia kwa hiyo meza, ile mazungumzo hatutazungumza na yenye hatutakaribia ni mazungumzo ya kitu inaitwa handshake na nusu mkate.
The calls for intensified fight against corruption comes at a time when the country is reflecting on the achievements and failures of the devolved power to counties. Dorothy Musyoka, KUTV.
Right, thank you Dorothy Musyoka for that comprehensive reporting, and now it's time to dive into our conversation of the day. Remember, it has been 10 years since the devolution, and of course there has been a lot of things that have happened in this field, but a big question that we are asking today: has devolution lived up to your expectation? And of course, now on standby is Kevin Osindo, that is the Executive Director, County Governance Watch. Osindo, thank you so much for making time to speak to KUTV.
Thank you so much, Evans. I'm very much delighted to be having this very important conversation with your channel and of course with Kenyans and the world that is watching us.
All right.
Thank you.
Osindo, it has been over 10 years since, of course, the devolution came into effect. What has worked so far?
Now, that's a very, very important question. One of the things that has worked is the devolution of decision making. And for the first time in our country, we are seeing opportunities for citizens to be able to make decisions around their own affairs, their own resources, and much more fundamentally, to be able to be put at the decision-making tables. And that is really what I call the public participation processes, which therefore border on issues around the county integrated development planning, which by law I expected that citizens are organized, they sit together with their leaders, and they make recommendations and proposals on programs and projects that their counties are supposed to be implementing. What has worked is, of course, the devolution of functions in terms of the most closest to the heart of the citizen. Of course, there have been challenges, which I'm sure that we'll be talking about in this particular discussion, but I believe that in a number of the counties in the country called Kenya, we now have citizens engaging with issues of health. We have citizens engaging with issues of education through ECDs. We have citizens engaging with infrastructure. And in fact, there are areas in this country where without devolution, were it not for devolution, we would not be seeing people being able to move from one location to the other, from one market to the other. We have areas in this country where now we have citizens being able to have access to water. And water really is almost everything. So Evans, there is a lot that we have seen devolution doing across the countries. If you go to areas like in Mandera or northeastern Kenya, for the first time in our independence, so in our history, they have had their first cesarean sections. And of course, many live examples of how mothers and children have been, how expectant mothers have delivered in hospitals with our very able human resource, particularly in health facilities. We have markets opening up all over this country, and within a very short time we'll be seeing the uprising of cities around Kenya, just beyond Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, and because those are the only 4 cities that we have right now. So devolution has been able to meet its essence. Devolution has delivered, and I am sure that despite the challenges and the pitfalls, there are quite a number of hits that devolution has given to the people of Kenya. Evans.
All right. Well, when you talk about the hits of devolution, one of the things was to bring the services closer to Mwananchi, and you have clearly highlighted this. But When you look at the flip side of the coin, we have seen a few challenges here and there. For example, there is some like pending bills. We have, doctors issuing strikes, even some going on strikes. These are all things that we have witnessed. In your own objective of overview and analysis of this devolution, even as we take count 10 years down the line, do you think it has lived up to its expectation, what Kenyans really, or rather the purpose that this particular devolution was intended to serve?
Evans, if you talk about pending bills, and in fact, even before we get to pending bills, there is a bigger issue called corruption. And corruption is one of those things that has really clawed back the successes of devolution. And a number of times, of course, we've had people saying, did we devolve services? Did we devolve devolution, or we devolved corruption? And this is purely based on the fact that you walk around our counties and you see new real estates coming up, very well-furnished estates. You see petrol stations left, right, and center, and you ask, who owns that? Who owns that? You are told they are owned by the political class within the counties. And if you go further to ask who are this political class or who falls within this political class, it is the governors, it is the MCAs, it is some, CCs. And all Kenyans know how much a governor earns, how much an MCA earns, how much a CC or a chief officer will earn. So if we do that within 5 years, or you say, for instance, 1 year, if you're just starting your term of office, we'll be able to ask ourselves, is it possible that therefore you can be able to amass all that wealth and put up whatever we see happening in the counties? And that is one of the reasons why we have pending bills, that governors and those who sit at the table where pending bill decisions are being made actually decide on who they pay, who they prioritize to be able to pay for having rendered their services. And if you walk around the counties, which we have done, some of the people that are owed by counties, in fact, there are families that are languishing in poverty. There are families who have even lost their loved ones out of suicide, out of the poverty levels that have been exacerbated by just the fact that counties have not been able to pay people that have rendered their services. And that is why in some of the counties, and on the advisory of the Controller of Budget, right now we have what is called the Pending Bills Verification Committee, that before any payments are made, as counties are now, of course, in the third generation of our devolved governance, and they are just about to start implementing their first budgets in this particular government, the directive is that you must show how you are going to clear the pending bills that the counties have. And we're not saying that it's just counties that owe pending bills. Even national government has pending bills. And in fact, if you look at the tabulation of the pending bills, the national government has over 85% of pending bills that are owed to different service providers. So the good news, however, is that there are steps that are being put in place to be able to deal with the pending bills issue, and it is a call to counties to be able to do a number of things, including not to over-rely on the national government to be able to disburse the resources, because part of the issues why we have pending bills, Evans, is the over-reliance on national treasury to be able to disburse the resources to county governments through equitable share. Mm-hmm. And so counties are being encouraged to be able to enhance their own source revenue, so that part of the resources that are gotten from the counties could be used to be able to clear those pending bills. And this is purely important because we cannot take advantage of all the resources that are going to counties just for payment of bills. Citizens are also expecting that county governments are going to be rendering services, they are going to be implementing different programs, and at least I am sure because of the other challenge, which is delay in disbursement of resources to counties, the Kenya Kwanza government, despite all the other mistakes and errors and gaps that we see them making every day, particularly on issues of devolved counties to devolved functions to counties, at least there are mechanisms that are now being put in place to clear all the balances that national government owes to county governments, so that money goes to county governments and it is used for clearing the pending bills and also to be able to implement the various services. Evans.
All right. I want us to stay a bit on the pending bills. I mean, even the on-source revenues means to generate your own, resources to actually fund the operation of the counties. You remember we talked about, we have seen on a number of occasions doctors going on strike, workers striking because of, pending bills and delayed salaries. Well, even as we take stock of this, the gains and the misses that we are actually, recorded over a span of 10 years since the inception of the devolution. In your opinion, what do you think, or rather, what do you propose should be the best way forward moving in terms of counties actually being independent? Because one of the key objectives of the devolution was for these counties to actually realize their limitless potential. And this is what we are talking about, because it is one of the ways to actually, move forward so that this discussion of pending bills and, counties has resources, and actually they have to really, at some point, to actually generate their own resources. So what do you think, or what do you think should be proposed rather moving forward so that counties can actually rely on themselves rather than relying on government for, funding?
A very, very good question. I have seen some people making proposals, for instance, that we need to, reduce the number of counties, dissolve certain counties. That might not be a better way to be able to deal with that particular concern or that particular issue. What counties must be able to do is to spur manufacturing and industrialization within the counties. And one of the things, for instance, Evans, that we have been commending and we continue even to push for in this particular conference and in the other conversations on devolution, is that we need to emphasize that counties have one industry, one county. There is something that each of our 47 counties are very good at. And in fact, when we were having the transition authority, as devolution was coming up, we used to have an authority called the Transition Authority, which came up, went around the country and picked resources and various benefits from within the counties. We must be able to ask ourselves, what is it that these counties are good at, and how can they be able to take advantage of those areas that where they have their strengths to be able to spur industrialization. Now, we need to look also into how counties are enhancing value addition. For instance, if you go to Kisii, for example, you see the women and men and young children, rather the young girls over there, who have organized themselves into cell groups and into networks, who are engaging in soapstone business. How can we be able to engage with county governments, to be with Kisii County government, for example, to be able to add value to the work which they are doing, to ensure that they also get linked into markets and export the kind of also look at the economic blocks of county governments, and all the 47 counties belong to an economic block. We must emphasize the value addition for economic blocks and ask ourselves, what is it that we can be able to do within those economic blocks, and look at how counties can be able to benefit from each other. And in so doing, we will be creating employment, and by so doing, therefore, we'll be putting monies into people's pockets, and by so doing, we'll also be able to therefore tax them. And as we tax them, they will be seeing services being rendered, and of course, value for their money. For example, on areas like infrastructure, so roads, so that people are able to access markets, they are able to access one county to the other, and therefore learn from each other, even as we talk about socioeconomic rights. So there are a number of issues and a number of recommendations and innovative ways that counties can be able to engage in, so that they enhance their own source revenue. Not to mention, of course, the role of county assemblies. And that has been one of the biggest conversations in assemblies also need to support county governments to be able to pass progressive laws that are going to ensure that laws that support own source revenue and investments for counties are enacted. Evans.
Okay. Well, when you talk about the cordial relationship between the counties, there is another very interesting aspect. I'm talking about the relationship between the national government and the county government. We have seen these two, governments has been on the loggerheads concerning some of the functions that, to to some believe that this actually they fall under devolved functions. Functions like we have seen interest from sectors like health, we have agriculture there, and even some functions that are still being and being performed by Ministry of Water, Ministry of Health, Agriculture, and this has been some sort of create, fraction between county government and the national government. Well, what is the best way forward? I understand President yesterday actually reaffirmed his commitment that all these functions within 60 days will actually be, transferred to county government. But even as we talk about the ways to move forward, how counties can actually, generate revenues for the benefit of, common mwananchi and actually those that these particular devolution were meant to actually benefit. So what are you seeing here? Do you see a goodwill between county government and the national government, or is just a pipe dream?
There has to be a clear mechanism for us to be able to see goodwill from the national government. As we speak right now, there is no goodwill from the national government to be able to fully devolve functions as per Schedule 4 of our Constitution. And for instance, you mentioned one of those functions, health. There is no business that the national government has to be able to be implementing county government programs on health, on water, on agriculture, etc., including issues of fertilizers. It is not the work of the national government. By constitution, the national government is supposed to strengthen, to be able to pass laws, rather policies, and also mechanisms that strengthen various functions that county governments engage with. So it is quite worrying that the president spoke about 60 days. The president has been the chair of IPEC for almost 10 years. His Excellency the President knows we are not comfortable with the number of days that he keeps giving us, because Kenya Kwanza government keeps talking about issues of days to be implementing. We no longer see a clear mechanism. We don't see very concrete avenues and steps by that government is putting to be able to, to implement the promises that they make by day, by month, by year. So the prayer is that we must be able to continue to push the national government to fully devolve functions that are devolved, so that county governments are empowered and they are seen to be rendering services to the common mwananchi. As it is right now, is one of those very difficult intergovernmental conflicts that we are experiencing, and the people that are hurting and those that are being affected by these kind of challenges are the actual citizens. It is worrying, for instance, that under health, Kenya Kwanza government has 460 billion, but almost 98% of that money is still being held at the national government.
Right.
County governments have been given 150 billion to share among 47 of them. Why can't we be able to fully devolve so that a bigger chunk of that resource actually goes to counties? Why should the national government maintain 350 billion out of 460 billion at the national level for functions that are devolved?
All right. Okay, even as, we are racing against time, and actually this will serve as your, closing remark, and I want you to actually answer this question for me. Who do you think actually is the biggest hindrance to this devolution? And of course, even put into aspect the inclusion of youth in county government, affairs. Kindly, Sido, do that for me, even as we close this particular discussion.
One of the reasons why young people are disregarded in our governance is because, for instance, we don't know where they belong. Is youth a devolved function, or is it a national government function? By and large, youth engagement function. But if you look at, for instance, Ministry of Youth Affairs, Sports and the Arts, why do they have budgets for young people that is not devolved? So there is a bit of confusion in terms of policy. And we keep talking about this, at least for the last 10 years of devolved governance. We have been pushing the national government to be able to empower county governments to be able to effectively engage and involve the youth. And one of those challenges is the fact that youth as a function is not very clear. The best thing to do is to be able to devolve the youth function and empower county governments to be able to fully engage with young people at the county levels. What the national government should and can be able to do is the policy aspect. In fact, we have the Kenya National Youth Policy of 2019 that also enhances devolution within the policy by focusing on what young people can be able to do at the county levels. It is a big challenge, Evans, and I'm sure that because of the goodwill that we continue to see from the Ministry of Youth Affairs, Sports and the Arts, Mheshimiwa Babu Namwamba, the President William Ruto, and even the county governors, we are hoping that youth is going to be strengthened and the conversation around how to engage young people will continue until the youth of Kenya feel part and parcel of leadership and governance.
Thank you. Well, Kevin Osido, thank you so much for making time to speak to KUTV Primetime News.
Asante sana. God bless you.
All right. Well, with that, we take a short break here on KUTV Primetime News. When we come back, we'll be taking a look at plenty of stories lined up for you, including even our sports news.
This and that you study. If you're not in class, you're in the field.
Najua students mnapenda kulala. What I do when I get broke.
If the money is not enough, we find some of us wenye tunaingia in betting.
Tu kuna challenges mingi.
Now you're here 4 years later, about to graduate. What do I say?
Hapo kamatia. Nyama kwani nipe bia. Maisha ni haya mwanaume ali. Sielewi yani hata neno moja. Yani tunasikia tu maboko likolo. Yani ukiniangalia tu mwamba huyu anafiti sehemu fulani. Wewe inakaa. Without your love, I can't move on. Yo, that's your boy Rhino the Don. Keep watching and listening to KUTV.
Right, welcome back, and of course, let's continue with our broadcast here on KUTV Primetime News. Now, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has revealed plans to strengthen the United Democratic Alliance Party to achieve the success similar to China's Communist Party. Gachagua met a Communist Party envoy from China led by Chinese ambassador to Kenya, Zhu Pengjiang, where he relayed his admiration for the success of the Chinese Communist Party, inviting a working partnership between UDA and the CPCE to steer Kenya's ruling party beyond the current administration. Additional development agenda were agreed upon, including intensified Chinese investment in the manufacturing sector to create employment.
Our party has had the 1 year old. This party was formed a few months before the general election in 2022. It is undoubtedly the party of the future. It's a party that is popular across the whole country. It's a very democratic party. We allow internal democracy to thrive within the party. We let everybody do what you want, to say what you want, but we want to develop that party like the CPC, a party for a century. And we are asking for your hand as our brothers to hold our hand so that you can help us nurture our democracy.
Now to corridors of justice. Uasin Gishu Senator Jackson Mandago has been released on bail of 2 million shillings. Mandago was arrested yesterday after the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution issued an arrest warrant against him on allegation of being involved in a scandal relating to Butched Finland and Canada's scholarship during his tenure as a governor. Nakuru Chief Magistrate Peter Ndege, who authorized the release, said the case cannot proceed without one of the accused, Joseph Maritim, arguing that the four have been gently charged. Mandago has been released along other his co-accused, that is Joshua Lele and Mesha Krono. Now Now, the Red Cross Society has hinted at the plan to review its policies regarding the organization's level preparedness in response to mass casualties incidents. According to the Red Cross, Secretary General Ahmed Idris, the Shakahola massacre was an eye-opener to the countries and reviewing some response mechanism policy which will enhance preparedness in future should a similar worse incidents occur. Ruth Onjiru with more details.
While on tour of Malindi County, the Kenya Red Cross Secretary General Ahmed Idris announced that his organization, in collaboration with the government, will review its emergency response policies, especially those dealing with mass casualties incidents. Idris termed the Shakahola massacre as an eye-opener to the country on its level of preparedness. He believes that the lessons learned during the handling of the Shakahola massacre will form a basis in reviewing policies on responding to such incidents in future.
Mass casualty incidences are an opportunity for us to reflect on our capacity as a nation, our capacity as an institution, our preparedness to be able to deal with such tragedies. We are learning as a nation and we are learning as an institution. Part of our visit today was to document, to understand what the lessons learned are for us to be able to prepare in the future.
In addition, the Red Cross Secretary General cited that in partnership with the government, the institution will continue providing services needed to handle the Shakahola massacre until the process is fully completed.
Finally, as the government gives a directive with the final plans for support on burials, we just want to make our commitment as an institution that we will be working with the government through the remaining phases of the response, whatever the direction it will take. And we are honored as an institution to play that critical role in the country.
Idris later met with volunteers who took part in the search, rescue, exhumation and the general operation in Shakahola as they were undergoing a psychosocial support counseling sessions at the Ocean Beach Resort. The Shakahola massacre left over 426 followers of controversial preacher Paul Mackenzie dead. Given that the morgues in the area were unprepared to handle such a tragedy, temporary morgues were provided to help in storing the bodies. Red Cross plans to expand these morgues in the few coming days to create space to allow for identification of bodies. Ruth Wanjiru, Okello TV.
And residents of Nanyuki in Laikipia County have received free eye checkups with over 100 patients getting free cataract surgeries. The 3-day eye clinic organized by Lion's Sight First Eye Hospital at Nanyuki Maternal and Nursing Home further saw residents get free eye glasses and medicine. Meanwhile, traders across Embu County have set to benefit from the construction of 6 new modern markets aimed at creating a conducive working environment as well as providing a ready market for farmers' produce. Let's get this and more in our subsequent business wrap, I beg your pardon.
The Lion's Sight First Eye Hospital has organized a 3-eye clinic for residents in Nanyuki, Laikipia County, with over 100 patients getting free cataract surgery, while 800 patients receiving free eye checkups.
We are going to have quite a number of markets in Embu County. Kidemu is a market that has both the input of the county government, and we are reaching out to the national government to give us more funds to do the extensions and the improvements that we have spoken about.
Elsewhere in Embu, the county government is set to construct 6 new modern markets with an aim of creating a conducive working environment for traders in the market. At the same time, students, parents, and educational stakeholders in Uriri Sub-County, Migori County, have undergone sensitization on how to apply for HELB loans and scholarships. COSP's official Colin Sabato says that the sensitization forum will enable the Form 4 leavers learn how best to apply for their career choices as per the KCC performance as well as the HELB scholarships and loans.
You are aware, the education is going through much revolution. There are so many changes that are happening, and in doing so, we've come here to sensitize people, parents, students, and other stakeholders on how they can apply for the government scholarship.
The HELB scholarships and loans will cover a large part of the college fees, but parents and guardians will have to top up to complete the fees depending on the needs of the students. Cynthia Nderitu, KUTV.
And now, across the borders, traders between Nigeria and Niger has halted business because of sanctions due to Niger's July coup. A Nigeria official says they could lose over $200 million in export trade, that causing some economic hardship for many communities on the border. VOA's reports from the border town of Magama, Jibia, Nigeria.
For 2 weeks, Bilia Isa has been one of many drivers forced to park their trucks loaded with goods in Magamajibia, Nigeria, near the border with Niger. The continued border closure is due to sanctions imposed on Niger by the international community and the regional bloc, the Economic Community of West African States, or ECOWAS, because of Niger's July coup. Nigerian officials say the closure could result in losses of $226 million.
I have been at this border for almost 15 days. The commodities I am carrying will spoil if the closure reaches next month. It is going to be a huge loss to us and the owner. I have no money with me right now. Friends here provide food for me.
The usual bustle in this community has been hindered by the insecurity in Niger and the sanctions that followed. Abdulkadir Sani is a shop owner who sells food and basic supplies. He says some people no longer open their shops due to low demand.
Patronage is at its lowest level. I am not even talking about it because people come to the shop to borrow money to eat. Some shops here have closed since the border closure.
Another shop owner, Muhammad Adamu, says the sanctions have caused commodities prices to skyrocket.
The cost of living has soared. The price of commodities have tripled. We in Nigeria border communities seem to be more affected by the sanctions than people in Niger.
Nigerian inflation has been rising for years and currently sits at nearly 23%. That is putting some commodities beyond the reach of the poor, according to the country's National Bureau of Statistics.
The government is doing all arrangements to ensure that it makes life easy for the good people of Katsina State, particularly those living along the border communities. And already government has purchased grains worth millions of naira that are distributed freely.
Bashir Adeniyi, acting Comptroller General of the Nigerian Customs Service, insists the border closure is its worth the financial risks, given the security concern.
Sometimes you also have to look at the other side of it, and that is the fact that for these economic relations to thrive, you also need to frame them within an atmosphere of peace and security. And when this is absent, we may have problems. So we need to strike a balance between the two.
With the ECOWAS activating its standby force, residents of these border community are not only concerned about their livelihood, but also their safety and security. Al-Hassan Bala, VOA News, Magamajibia, Nigeria.
It is 49 minutes past the time, and we take yet another short break here on KUTV Primetime News. When we come back, it's Sports News.
Number
Focus on Health is a show that creates awareness on matters health and informs you on various diseases, their causes, treatment, prevention, coping, and support. So join me, Bwari Michelle, every Thursday at 7:30 p.m. only on KUTV. You can also follow us on our social media platforms at KUTV Focus on Health on Facebook and also on YouTube, and Health Focus on Instagram, because your health is your wealth. Stay safe and stay healthy.
Right, it's now time for sporty action. Athletics Kenya President Jackson Tuwe has been elected as the World Athletics Vice President at the 54th World Athletics Congress in Budapest, Hungary, after garnering 104 votes. Sebastian Coe retained the World Athletics presidency 2 days before the World Athletics Championship that will be held in Budapest commences. Tuwe became the first Kenyan to hold the vice president position at the World Athletics governing body. Now from athletics to golf, Krishi Shah won the Kenya Junior Stroke Play Championship at the Muthaiga Golf Club by 1 stroke at the end of the 4 rounds, ahead of second place Mikael Kihara and Edwin Van Kay, who finished in 3rd place. Shah said he made consecutive mistakes and enabled Kihara and N1, who are very good players, who took full advantage and closed the gap on the points he had over them, while Kihara agreed he had shaky start in the first round. The final scores had Chris Shah with 21 points as the winner, while Mikael Kihara with 20 points and Edwin Van Nika on 19 points in 3rd place.
Mikael guys, they're good players, so they'll capitalize, and then they came, and then I just had to keep my head down. After hole 14, hole 15, I came back, so after that it was fine, but it should have been much easier than I made it.
I actually missed it left, saved par, and then brought it back to level. But after that, with a triple, double, and then bogey, I think he basically had gone with it, but I said it's not over till it's over, so just kept it going and saying that 6 is not a lot of shots.
Now to international news. Treble winners Manchester City beat Sevilla 5-4 on penalties to win their first ever UEFA Super Cup trophy in an exhilarating match played in Athens, Greece. Europa League winners Sevilla went ahead in the first half with a goal from striker Yusuf N. Ben Nasir, before Champions League winners Manchester City equalized in the second half with a fine header from Cole Palmer. The match went on to penalties after 90 minutes, with City scoring all 5 of their spot kicks to win their first trophy of the season under the Spaniard tactician Pep Guardiola. The Citizens will resume Premier League action when they host Newcastle United at the Etihad Stadium on Saturday.
Manchester City have won the Super Cup. City have another trophy, the Super Cup.
Right, we are done with our news that we had prepared for you. But before that, President William Ruto has just nominated Renson Mulele Igonga as the new Director of Public Prosecution. Well, that is a wrap from us, from our end. Thank you so much for making time and, of course, keeping us a company in the last, 15 minutes or so. My name is Auma Evans. Samuel Okello has been on our sign language interpreter tonight. Until next time, it's a bye-bye for now, and do have a lovely night.